Today I want to share with you what I think is one of the most psychologically interesting and sometimes life-changing lessons that I teach my clients. Now, this is based on a whole bunch of psychology, and I want to start off by saying, look, sometimes when I make a video, I throw a bunch of facts at you guys without talking about the research, and then I get guys complaining that I didn't give any research, I didn't talk about where the research came from. Other times I talk about it and then I get guys complaining that I took too long to get to the point. So I'm going to go ahead and create some chapter markers so you guys can jump ahead if you don't want to listen to the background behind this, so you can get to the meaty stuff. But I'm going to give the background because I find it fascinating. I know some of you guys are nerds like me who like this stuff as well. Today's lesson is really inspired by the only psychologist to ever win a Nobel Prize. His name is Daniel Kahneman, and he wrote a book that is both the most boring book I've ever read and the most interesting book I've ever read. It's boring because it is absolutely lacking any humor or fun or any good storytelling skills at all. It's great because it is full of amazing psychological research that Kahneman has conducted over his lifetime. Now, in his book, Thinking Fast and Slow, Kahneman talks about two different ways that we process information. You probably guessed it from the title of the book, the fast and the slow. So for example, if I were to ask you guys what is 16 times 4, your brain would have to stop and think, what is 16 times 4? You might imagine it like you're doing a multiplication table, 6 times the 4, and then you bring the 2 over, and then the 6, and then you add the 2, and then you get 6. And that might be how you do it. Maybe you visualize a number of different ways. It doesn't matter how good you are at maths. Almost all of you need to go through this process to try to work out what the calculation is. Was it even 86? I'm not 100% sure because I got it wrong on my quick. No, it's 84, isn't it? 64. Shit. Anyway, you get the idea. You can see even in my head that I get it wrong when I'm trying to do it quickly on a camera. But we have to go through that calculating process. Now, we go through the slow process with a number of tasks. And not just maths, but we go through the thinking process with a lot of tasks. That's the slow brain, where it thinks logically and rationally and precisely step by step. However, a lot of our lives are also dictated by what's called the fast brain, the fast part of the brain. And the fast part of the brain is a lot less accurate. And what it does is it really combines a whole bunch of historic experience together to make a judgment call about what it's seeing. So for example, have you ever met someone and you just don't like them on sight? It's illogical, but you did it like that. If you imagine you hopped onto a train and you're sitting on the train and a man comes onto the train and the guy's like 6'3", bald head, covered in tattoos, wearing a biker jacket with big bikie insignia on the back of his jacket. What do you think of this guy? Straight away, what is your intuition telling you, right? You don't have to have a logical thought to know he could be dangerous. But imagine that on the very next stop, a lady gets on and the lady's carrying a baby and the lady walks up to the man and she passes her baby to the man. The man cradles the baby and starts making baby noises and playing with the baby. What happens now to that fast part of your brain? It gets a surprise and has to quickly rearrange what kind of guy you think he is. This is the fast brain in effect. So what the fast brain does is it takes a whole bunch of what it calls heuristics, rules of thumb. And so it has a rule of thumb that if I see a guy covered in tattoos, that could be dangerous. If I see a guy who's skinhead, that could be dangerous. If I see a guy in a leather jacket with bike insignia, that could be dangerous. And it creates those heuristics, those rules of thumb that are perfect for no one, but it's a good approximation of what the world is really like. So, okay, how does this help us in the real world? Why am I talking about heuristics and fast and slow thinking brains in dating? Okay, well, I want to introduce you to my friend M. Now, I've been friends with M since I was 21 years old, and he was one of the first guys that I ever went out with and talked to and picked up and slept with lots of women with, right? He is one of the few guys I've ever met who can match me in ability to meet and flirt with girls. Now, let me tell you some more things about M. M is not fat, but he is slightly overweight. M, certainly at the time when I first met him, when I was going out with him, did not have money. He did not have much money at all. He was working as a chef and he didn't have a lot to spend. He is 5'7" on a good day. So M does not really have a lot of the features that you'd expect. By the way, I've also put M's photos up on PhotoFeeler, and he averaged about a 7.1. So M is okay looking, not like incredibly hot, just okay looking. So we have this guy who doesn't appear to have the things that we think men need to attract women. M has had absolutely no coaching. He's had no training. He's never practiced and learned to meet women. So why does M do so well? M was raised in very privileged conditions. He was originally born in Venezuela to a wealthy family, and then he moved to Cuba, where he lived an extremely privileged life in Cuba. So he lived as a wealthy person in Cuba, which is incredibly rare. This is as a teenage boy going through puberty, going to high school, being extremely privileged in a very poor country. As you can imagine, M grew up having women chasing him. He expected that women would want to be with him. Now, even though M doesn't have any of that privilege he used to have, he doesn't have access to the money anymore. His parents split, his life conditions have changed dramatically. He has still maintained the entitled wealthy guy behavior pattern, way of acting, way of dressing, way of looking at women. He still expects women to like him, right? So he behaves in a very particular way. But what's important to note is this: not all women are going to like M. See, M is obnoxious a little bit, and he's a little bit arrogant, and he's a little bit outspoken, and he talks a lot. And some of what he talks is total BS, right? He is what you'd call a hyper stereotype of a Latin guy, right? And I don't mean any offense to any Latin guys watching, because obviously all Latin guys are different. But if you think about what is the heuristic, what is the rule of thumb, what is the thing that what is the caricature we might picture in our heads of a cocky, confident Latin guy, because he is it through and through. When he and I go out, what's really interesting is the women that he attracts are very different to the women that I attract. The women that he attracts, I don't think would like me very much. I don't think they'd want to be with me. And likewise, I don't think the women that I attract want to be with him, because I've heard it multiple times that they don't really like him. They find him abrasive. But that doesn't matter, because the women who like this stereotype of guy, they go for him. And the women who like the Damien stereotype of guy, they'll go for me. And so the big lesson here is this: 95% of the time when women meet you, they are not judging you based on who you are. They're judging you based on the heuristics you trigger inside of them. There's a snap judgment that they have to make, that their brains will always make. And what's so cool about all this, what is really amazing about this, is that there are so many different kinds of stereotypes that women can find hot. Let me just give you a few examples. You've got the quiet, deep thinker, the troubled creative, the quirky nerd, the mature worldly man, the carefree surfer guy, the spiritual guy, the revolutionary, the dreamer, the businessman, the exotic foreigner, the dark and mysterious. You've even got things like the clean-cut suit Asian guy. Now, I'm showing you images of these kinds of stereotypes, but that list is long and it's extensive, and there are so many more than I just rattled off quickly then. The reality is that if you make it really easy for a woman's fast thinking brain, for her to create heuristics and quickly judge who you are, then a certain section of women are really going to be drawn to you. So what you need to do is look at a list like this, think about a list like this, and think about what is the closest stereotype to who I actually am. And then how can I look like that stereotype to make it really easy for her to guess and assume who I'm going to be. Now, you can attract women without doing this. It is possible. I have known many clients, as well as some of my coaches who work with me, who don't rely on this feature of human behavior. But I'll tell you what, it makes it a hell of a lot easier, especially if you're not super attractive genetically. But the big mistake a lot of guys make is this. They make two mistakes, okay? 90% of my clients. One, they dress in a way that gives her almost zero heuristic evidence to judge who she thinks you're going to be, which means she has to be willing. You have to do all the work to make her willing to sit there and pay attention and get to know you. And without a heuristic for her to work out if she does or doesn't like you, she's got to have time on her hands. She's got to be in the right mood. You get it. And I'm sure a lot of you have experienced this, of you working so hard in the beginning to get her attention. And if you get her attention, she likes you, then it's easy. The second thing some guys do wrongly is they do the exact opposite. they create a negative heuristic. In other words, they look like a negative stereotype. And this is one of the things that happens a lot around race and culture. In other words, if you are a member of a culture that has a negative stereotype, and you dress like that negative stereotype, then you are going to make it twice as hard for you. And I say this in a lot of ways. So where am I going here? I'm saying this. You need to think about or ask for feedback from female friends, from male friends. What do they think a stereotype is that you'd be closest to? Think about it. What do you get drawn to? If you watch TV shows, if you watch movies, what type of personality, male, like the attractive male, do you get drawn towards? Because we get drawn towards the types that we like the most. When I was young, I used to do this a lot. I used to wear suspenders and hats and like different types of hats and vests and ties and bow ties. This was matched to my personality, at least how it was when I was in my 20s. I wouldn't do it anymore. It wouldn't feel right. But that was my character type, the guy who liked to dress up and tell jokes and be cheeky. And that was mine, but it's not necessarily yours. Now, one of the really great ways, there's two ways I advise guys to find ideas for clothing, hairstyles, facial styles that will match a heuristic, and that's this. The golden one that I used to always give was go to Google. Just go to Google and type in dark, mysterious guy, or type in sexy, exotic foreigner, or, whatever it is, the stereotype that you might want to go with. Maybe you're Latin, maybe you're black, maybe you're, whatever it is, sexy, exotic black guy, sexy, exotic Latin guy, insert whatever it is here. And look on Google for image examples of that, because Google's pretty good at knowing these things. But now we have AI, it's even easier. Because all you need to do is type in to say ChatGPT-4, like I've done with the images I showed you before, and say, hey, draw me a sexy, exotic Latin guy, right? Give me more variations on this guy. Make him look different. How else might this guy dress? Ask questions like this. It'll keep giving you images, and AI knows what the heuristics are. That's one of the great things AI does, is the way that AI learns, is it learns by understanding concepts and heuristics. That's how it learns. So it's literally spitting those heuristics out at you. And a lot of guys find it uncomfortable to change how they dress, to change how they style themselves. But it can make a massive, massive difference, because you are helping women's fast brains lock onto something. And if they can lock onto something that some women find sexy, then those women who find you sexy are going to make it so easy for you. Seriously, that's how you start getting noticed. That's how you start having women give you, make it easy for you, or start to flow with you before you've even said a word. The guys who get that are either attractive or they match a stereotype in the way they dress and the way they style themselves. And I see this over and over and over again. And if you guys take this to heart and really apply this, you will notice a very quick improvement in your results when you go out to meet women. Now, this doesn't just apply to cold approaching either. This applies also, of course, to online dating. If you can match a stereotype, if you can match a heuristic where women can look at your first photo and go, I know what kind of guy this is. Some of them are not going to like that kind of guy, but others are going to love that kind of guy. And there is already strong research with online dating that also shows that outside of really attractive people, the other demographics that do well are people who appeal to niche interests. And I've talked about this in previous videos before. So guys, I hope you found today's video interesting. I didn't want to go too data heavy when I talked about the background, but I'll put some links in the comments below. I highly recommend you check out Daniel Kahneman's book, Thinking Fast and Slow. If you haven't read it, you definitely should. Just think as a Bible, so it's going to take you a while. As always, guys, if you'd like to do some coaching with me, go ahead and check in the comments below, and I'll put a link to some of my programs, as well as one-on-one coaching with me over Zoom. Please, if you like the video, smash the thumbs up and subscribe to my video. That helps me a ton, and I look forward to seeing you guys next time.